everybody. Welcome back to Short Film Saturdays. It is December 3rd, and this is actually the final Short Film Saturdays of 2022. A little bittersweet. So we're taking a bit of a hiatus, then we'll be back in January. But because this is the final Short Film Saturdays of the year, we spared no expense. We are bringing you premium, beautiful, wonderful short films. We've got two crazy good short films for you to watch on this final Short Film Saturdays of the year. My name is Nase DeSanders. I'm the Community Outreach Manager here at Soleil Space. Let me tell you a little bit about Soleil. We're a media company based in Brooklyn, New York. Our mission is to achieve a more equitable and representative global film and television landscape. Our focus is on the global diasporas of Asia, Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Middle East, with the goal of elevating these untold stories from these cultures, forming closer transcultural community bonds, and providing opportunities and resources for our creators to produce premium world-class content. We specialize in film, TV, editorial media, and aim to uplift those underrepresented voices from these regions that are not often seen, authentically represented, or well understood in the global mainstream media. And there's no better way to do that than with short films. You guys know I was going to say it. Shorts are often the purest form of artistic expression and often, but not always, executed within the boundaries of smaller production budgets. Since launching Short Film Saturdays in late summer of 2021, we have featured 77 films from 63 filmmakers in 27 countries to date. Wow. And we are adding to those numbers today with two amazing filmmakers. First, we're going to be watching Americanized by Erica Ang. Let me tell you a bit about Erica. Erica is a fifth-generation Chinese-American director based out of Los Angeles. Her film, Americanized, which we're watching today, screened at Atlanta Film Festival, Cleveland International, and Urbanworld, among others. The film is based on her experiences playing high school basketball, and it premiered on Vimeo Short of the Week. And it took home 18 awards, including Palm Springs International Short Fest, Bentonville Film Festival, and the Oscar Qualifying Award at CineQuest. Recently, Erica's latest film, Off Fairfax, had its world premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival. Wow. She also became one of 6 directors hand-selected for Disney's Launchpad Shorts Incubator program, where she will be mentored by executives from Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm as she directs a coming-of-age ghost story for Disney+. That is so cool. Inspired by her Oakland roots, Erica creates work that reflects the diverse community in which she grew up. Her combined background in cinematography and dance influences the rhythm and energy behind her emotional storytelling. Wow, what a bio. Erica, can you please tell us a little bit about the film we are going to be watching today?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that kind of summed it up. We ended our festival run this year, but it's a personal story, kind of about my experiences growing up in Oakland and understanding my Chinese American identity.
Very, very nice. And then our other filmmaker today is Mario Rubén Carrión. Born and raised in Puerto Rico and now living in Brooklyn, New York, Mario Rubén Carrión is a film director, editor, and photographer. Since falling in love with street photography in his early 20s, Mario has been on a journey of capturing moments that has now brought him to filmmaking, and we are so, so glad that it has. Having worked in the New York City Latin cultural scene for the past decade, Mario is inspired by the untold stories of his people, both in the island and in the diaspora. Such is the case with his first short film, Record Shop, and that is what we're watching today. Mario, can you please tell us a little bit about Record Shop?
Yeah, Record Shop is special to me because it's my first short film. It's a pandemic baby for sure. A lot of obstacles in the making of it. And it wasn't made with a lot of resources, but it was made with a lot of like community and love. And I just want you to keep that in mind when you go into it and enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, that is so, so wonderful. I'm sure everyone's going to love these two shorts. So if this is the first time you're joining us, let me give you the rundown. We are about to switch over and watch these two short films back to back. When you see the credits roll, we are not done. Do not go anywhere because we're going to be right back here for a wonderful Q&A with these two filmmakers, getting into the nitty gritty, everything they were thinking while making these great films. And then at the end of the Q&A, we take audience questions. So if there's anything on your mind that you want to ask these two great filmmakers, stick around because you are going to get to ask your question. So this is YouTube. You know I have to say it. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification. And with that, let's watch the films. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Short Film Saturdays. For those who don't know or you're just joining us, we just watched two amazing short films, one by Mario, one by Erica, and now is the Q&A. So if you haven't seen the films, no worries. We're going to talk all about them, but definitely stick around. Alrighty. So kicking it off, we watched Erica Ang's film Americanized first, so we're going to ask questions about that one first. Erica, it is not lost on me that the main character's name is Aang. What inspired you to tell this story, and what is your personal connection to the subject?
I'll try to just give you the short answer, but I felt like, being fifth generation, it's really a different experience being Chinese American. I feel like I always grew up like not really understanding myself, and I think that you never do as a teenager. And I felt like the kind of films and stories that were coming out with Asian American stories didn't really feel like mine.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like more of the inspiration behind making the film. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my short version of it.
Nice. And so you played basketball in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do you speak Chinese?
I don't.
And how do you feel about that? About you're not speaking Chinese? Is there like maybe a resentment? Are you okay with it?
Yeah, it's definitely a sore spot and kind of like an embarrassment. I feel like, growing up in Oakland is different. It's really culturally diverse. And, when I was going to high school, it was really cool to represent your culture.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew I was like American. I'm from Oakland and I had these friends. And I didn't really, I don't know how to like physically represent myself as Chinese besides language. And I didn't speak anything. So I felt a little ostracized from kids at my school, and I felt like looked down upon. And so I kind of also want to communicate that idea of like feeling like you're not accepted by your own race.
Yeah.
And also prove that we're not a monolith. Like we don't, just because you're Asian doesn't mean you like Asians, and just, we're all different, man. Like that's kind of like the idea, like, showing our individual stories. Yeah, I play ball. Like I played basketball since middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely based on, I would say it's 85% based on true what happened to me between middle school and my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like culminating all my experiences of identity and also like feeling like I don't really understand myself, but putting it in the day in the life of a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah, very nice. So one thing I want to dive into is this very clear, and someone even commented on, I was like, nice, I got my question ready. We see a very clear double standard between Aang, our main character, and David, her blue-haired friend. The other Asian girls, Denise, most audibly, reject her for, quote unquote, thinking she's a Black girl now. But they don't say anything about David or any of his peers, and they're all using African-American vernacular, and also, it seems he also plays basketball, but the malice is totally reserved for Aang. Why was this something you included, and what does it say about how we treat girls in their quest for acceptance?
That's really an interesting point. And that kind of like, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't think of that. I think people in the Bay sound like that. I don't know how to describe it, but it's an interesting point. And I think that she was more calling out her like trying to physically, be a different race that's not hers. Mm-hmm. And I think with the vernacular, that's kind of how people sound like in the Bay. So I didn't ever question that part. If you talk to anyone from the Bay, they kind of sound like that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I like, if you're born there, you kind of, I don't know, have like, to me it's more like swagger. But mm-hmm. Yes, it does come from like Black American culture and how like hip hop culture has a specific swagger. So if you were to walk it back, that is also kind of the point of calling it Americanized, because I feel mm-hmm. like a lot of times Asian American stories focus on wanting to be white, but that wasn't necessarily the case in the Bay. I feel like we embraced culture and we thought like that was also really cool. But I also think that no one really talks about Black American culture as being American culture.
Yeah.
And so that was also like a different view of like the Asian American experience.
Very interesting. Okay, so then to bring some context, what is, I mean, obviously you're not going to exact percentages, but just in your like your experience, if you can guess, what is, I guess, like the genetic makeup of Oakland, of the Bay Area?
Oh, I can tell my school.
Okay, yeah.
So my school was like, God, 30% Asian, maybe 20% Hispanic, and then wait, am I doing the wrong math? Don't quote me on my numbers because I wasn't good at math.
Don't worry.
Like 20% African American and like 5 or 10% white. And so, like, we make fun of white kids at school, and it was just like a different dynamic, and I wanted people to understand what my school felt like.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the numbers were to add up, but that's kind of how it felt. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I just want like a general idea. That is very interesting, actually. Okay, that definitely brings some context to it. My high school looked very different.
Yeah, I like that people thought that their high schools look different. I feel like if you just show like a diverse high school on television now, it's really done in a very like non-person of color way.
Yeah.
I don't think they know how to portray. I'm not going to name some shows about basketball on CW, but I don't think that they know how to portray kids of color and what we sound like in school and the culture.
Yeah. No, when you watch those shows, there's very, very clearly a disconnect where you're like, oh, okay, 7 white men wrote this. Very nice. Okay. So then we also see what I guess I would describe as the scarcity mentality among the characters in the film, specifically the young women. So we see Steph gets benched at the game and gets all the glory. She quickly feels inadequate, and like her place on the team is just not secured on the team, but also socially, right? And then of course there's Denise not welcoming Aang, and as we've discussed. So where is that coming from personal experience as well? Is that coming from just general thoughts on what it is to be a teen girl? Where was that coming from?
Yeah, I did name off of kids that I grew up with. I actually named Steph because she was actually really nice to me on the team. And she was the only one I felt like I had a friend. But the way that girls and teammates, if you know, when you play sports, we just shit on each other. Yeah. And I think as a really insecure girl, when someone's shitting on you, they don't really openly being like, you are ugly. Like people don't do that. They do it wrapped up in like a jab, but it's also the hard part is that getting at you is also I like you, but I don't like you.
Yeah.
So it can be either way. So if someone, even to this day, when someone like takes a jab at me, I'm like, are they saying that they like want to play with me or that they don't like me? And as an adult, I realized in my 20s, like, no one would ever do that vocally. No one ever says that kind of stuff to get at you in a mean way.
Yeah.
So in the locker room, when they're getting at her, it was more like, we're all joking, right?
Yeah.
But because she's so insecure, she took it as an insult.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how I try to like understand how to interact as an adult. Because I do that too. I make fun of people when I like them. But you wouldn't know if you don't like them or don't like them. And then for the Asian girls, I felt that way. I was like trying to be a part of ASU's Asian Student Union. I was trying to be like a part of the ASU club and be a part of that group. I just never felt like I was one of them. I just always felt really on the outskirts and that there wasn't really a place at the table for me. And I think it was more of that kind of journey. And I think that some popular girls there, made me feel very uncomfortable being there.
Okay, very nice. Well, not nice, but the answer was nice.
Yeah.
Not you feeling excluded.
Well, people come on the end, it's like it just cuts off. I'm like, well, do you know yourself at 16? And that was kind of my point. Like, but it's also about acceptance. And the grandmother is really the only character in the whole film that accepts her and welcomes her home. And like, where are you going? Someone that cares for you. So you still push her away. But then when she comes back home, the mother actually like cares for her.
Yeah.
So it's really just like people think it's about one thing, but it's really more about like, where do you find your home and your identity?
Very well said. No, the grandma is a wonderful touch. The grandmother at the end is how you know that she's going to be okay. You're like, high school. Sorry, girl, it sucks, but you have a great support system at home. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, you never find yourself out. And so I feel like all these like teenage shows, like, back how they were written, it's always like, you understand, like, oh, I grew from this. Like, not really. You don't grow when you're a kid that fast. It takes a while.
No, definitely. No, she'll look back at this when you're in your mid-20s.
Yeah, like, oh, now I get it. I was in my late 20s, like, oh, I think that's what that is. I think when I was 28, where I felt more comfortable being Chinese and understanding what that meant without feeling need to project anything culturally. I was like, yeah, I just am.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want me to do.
Nice. All right, so you've touched on it a little bit, but my final question for you before we hop into Record Shop, Americanized just so perfectly gets at this desperate need to fit in, to make friends, And I think anyone watching can relate to that, no matter where they're from, what culture. That's just something so human. So, what would you say to a girl like Aang who watches this film and sees themselves reflected?
I actually love that question because I was asked that before, and in a long answer, my little cousin watched it. It was like a little cousin removed, and I never talked to her. It's my cousin's kid. And she wrote me this really lovely letter about how she felt because she is Mexican and Chinese, not
Mm.
really understanding herself. And of course, my family doesn't speak anything, and on both sides just speak any of the languages. And I try to give her some responses back about like, not letting that get to you. But I feel like even us as kids were told that. It's
Yeah,
like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And when you're a kid, that means nothing. It's
exactly.
like, it's like, don't worry, I can see your future. You can't see it, but I can.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really hard to give advice on, what I would say to a 16-year-old or 15 or 14-year-old like that's going through that right now. But I mean, I guess like, people who look down on others just feel small themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a really big concept for a kid to understand.
Yeah.
But it's true. And it shouldn't make you feel small, but I can't tell people that it's gonna get better. I can't tell them that like, when we all grow older, people that you think are popular not be popular anymore because we all knew that growing up. We still felt the same way.
Yes.
So that's a non-answer answer, I guess. It's all we can do to help. It's like you're gonna go on your own journey, man. Like you're gonna figure it out. And to things you think are big now are just so small when you get older.
Absolutely. Wonderfully said. All right, we're going to switch gears now and talk about Record Shop for a bit. Mario, are you ready? Good.
Dale.
Yes was the only acceptable response. Alrighty. So, same starter question for you. What inspired you to tell this story, and what is your personal connection to the subject?
Hmm. I think what inspired it was my lived experience in the community in New York. I think I arrived in New York through photography.
Mm-hmm.
The first few events I went into and I shot were like musical festivals, cultural events. And there I made friends with a bunch of DJs, that kind of took me in, and I started shooting nightlife events, and that kind of one thing led to the next. So I spent a lot of time with these characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Two main characters in the film are two actual DJs from the community who have lived these experiences with me. So I kind of just wanted to get it out of my system. Something that I find so interesting about the New York scene is that, there are these gatekeepers from outside of the culture that kind of, you know, uh, delve into the culture, some respectfully, some not so respectfully, but there's power dynamics within that, and
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to bring that to the surface a little bit. And that's my personal connection to it. It's kind of a love letter to my DJ homies. I always say that. Now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm just, yeah, that's what I'm doing with this for sure.
Very nice. And how long have you been in New York?
I've been in New York, well, in the area, 12 years. I moved to Jersey from Puerto Rico when I was 15. And then I lived in Jersey City for about 8 years, which is, when I started making community in New York. And I've been in Brooklyn for the past 5 years now.
Very nice. Okay, cool. So I'm going to skip around, actually. I'm going to skip to one of my other questions for you because you just touched on it a bit. The dynamic between the white record shop owner and these two DJs is very interesting. He's sexist and he's got some potentially problematic views and attachments to this Latin music culture in New York. Can you explain this character archetype to us as you see it in real life in New York? Is he someone that you see a lot of in New York or in the US in general? Is this, yeah, like, I won't say more. I'll let you say more.
No, I definitely didn't want to make it like a villain, you know what I mean? Because the character is not a villain necessarily. I think it's a very generous character. He's willing to share and to give and to give the record to the guy as a gift.
Yeah.
But there's always like something behind there, of him trying to, you know, make space for himself in this culture that's not necessarily his.
Yeah.
Also like a power dynamic of like, I'm throwing this party, can you come on, I'll pay you for sure, you know, I'll definitely pay you, you know. He's like an agglomer how you say that word, agglomeration of a bunch of characters that I know.
Yeah.
He's not, you know, but I definitely didn't want to make it like a black and white thing. Obviously, no pun intended, it's black and white. Not like a caricature of a character, you know, of somebody who's like the problematic guy. You know, he obviously is cool. You know, he knows his shit. He knows his music, which is the case a lot of times. A lot of these people that come into the culture, you know, like know a lot. You know, so you're like your nature as a Boricua, Puerto Rican, you know, Latino folks, we're very warm, we're very welcoming. So right away, our nature is to be like, what? Like, gringo that dances salsa, that likes salsa, that plays salsa, you know, what's up? Let's do it. Mm-hmm. But when you look deeper, you know, and like you're trying to make a living from being in the scene, you know, and then there are people who are getting gigs over you who are not from the culture. You know, there's a lot of dynamics that go into it when you take a look at the big picture, you know, and the fact that it's a capitalistic system and there's a lot of dynamics that are formed within that. And so, you know, I'm just looking at both sides of me. I think the two DJs are the two sides of me in a way. One side that embraces folks like that, they're like, cool, yo, if you come with respect, you know, like, by all means, enjoy the music, have fun. And then the other side that's like, I don't know about that, you know, like I love that you are sharing our love for this music and like, you know, and want to get down with us, but there's limits to, you know, you should do it and the way, that's the way I think anyway. Yeah.
Very nice. So you knew this question was coming. Music. This film was all about music. Why do you feel music was the best way to get at the heart of this New York diasporic culture that's shown in the film?
Oh, because it's a story about music, you know. It's what we breathe, you know, we live, you know, like right now the top artist in the world is from a little island that I'm from, you know, in Puerto Rico. And I just, you know, think we express ourselves through music, we connect with folks through music, we feel joy through music and all the other feelings through music. So yeah, it's just a very specific niche story in a way, you know, which has been a challenge in other ways for folks to connect with it. But when we showed it in New York in a packed house, it was just so beautiful that, you know, people connected with it because it's a story about New York and music, you know. So yeah, music was the only way to tell the story. And it's funny because, you know, looking for music to use for the film, we made this film, you know, we shot it in one day. It was very low, you know, I got a $5,000 grant from City Corps. Like it was like a COVID relief grant. And I was like, you know what, I could pay rent. I really need to pay rent right now. Gigs are not coming through, but I want to make this film, you know, so we used the 5K for the film. And it was just a bunch of homies that came together, you know. I would say like there were 5 or 6 DJs in the community on set, you know, doing sound, doing you know, even location. The person that found the location was Wolf, who's on the chat right now talking over here, who also plays Chewy, the character that's playing Punch Out and Smoking. And so yeah, it was just I forgot where I was going with it, but oh yeah, so while looking for music for the film, I found this dynamic in real life, you know, like I was trying to use a specific song from the record that they're looking for, which is Ghetto Brothers, a classic New York salsa funk band from the 60s and 70s. And we couldn't get the music because it was like so many obstacles to get to the tracks because of the companies that own them are run by, you know, kind of like similar cats to Jake, but in a different scale, you know? So I saw it like firsthand, you know, while looking for music for the film. So we ended up, you know, reaching out to community homies like Ife, Maku Sound System, who provided us with the music that we use in the film. And they're all bands in the community that were really generous and helped us out. So, you know, it was all music all around, you know, and community. So yeah, that's what it was.
Question. Are you going to put out the soundtrack or the playlist to your film, like on a Spotify thing? And where can I subscribe to it or find it?
So there's a Spotify playlist I make because a lot of folks, you know, like leading up to the shoot, were like, oh, I want to get in the zone, you know, I want to get in the mood. Especially the Jake character, Jeremy Fight, who's a really talented actor. He came through. He was the only trained actor on set. So he had that mentality. He was like, can you give me a playlist? I want to get in the zone. I want to know what I'm talking about. So I made him a playlist. It's there. I can share it I'll share it on the chat in a bit. But
Please do.
I would love to put like a 45 out. You know, we talked about putting like all the songs in the record in a 45 with like the record shop kind of. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to talk to the homies at Maku and Ife to see if they'll
You
let
should
us
do
do it.
that. And at film festivals, you pass it out with a poster. So it's like, here's a soundtrack, check it out. I'm your marketing manager now, man.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
That is a wonderful
Love that.
idea, actually.
I love that.
Awesome. So still on the music for the audience members who may not know anything about New York or the types of music played in the film, what kind of music were we listening to throughout the film? I mean, you just told us some of the artists, but what kinds of music and why are these kinds of music endemic to New York culture?
Well, the film is about salsa technically. You know, like the salseros were the rock and roll artists for Puerto Rican and Caribbean folks in the 60s and 70s, you know, like while funk was popping up, jazz, you're talking like punk rock. This, you know, the 70s were a wild time in music in New York, and there was salsa blasting everywhere in New York, you know, and they were our rock and roll people, you know, they were our rock and rollers. So it's based on that. I didn't use a lot of salsa in the film because of copyright and all the obstacles that were on the way, but I kind of wanted to give them an homage, you know. That's why I did the shots of the record covers and stuff like that. I wanted to incorporate somehow. It didn't at the end. It didn't feel too salsa to me, you know, the actual film, even though that's what they were talking about. So I was like, how do we do that? We put we did those shots, the little jump shots of the record covers. But yeah, it's about salsa. It's about 70s music. It's about our ancestor music. And the music that plays in the film is Ife. Ife is a band that does like Afro Puerto Rican music mixed in. You know, they do electronic stuff of things that are played with, you know, analog instruments. So it's really, really cool mix they do, like a concept, you know, their propuesta is really cool. And then Maku Sound System, which is like a Colombian band. They do, you know, just rock, you know, they rock out. They rock and cumbia it out. They're great. So
Very
that's what was.
cool. So then I am also not the best at math, but according to the numbers you gave me about how long you've been in New York, you were not there during the 70s for this salsa boom. So where are you coming from personally with this? Is it something your parents played for you a lot? Is it just in your own research that you got into it? How did you get into this music scene?
Oh yeah, you grow up with this, you know. If you grow up in the island, you grow up with this. This is the music your parents play. This is the music you party to, you know, when you're with the elders, when you're with the family. And yeah, you grow up around it. It's all around you. And it's kind of still, there's a nostalgia about it, you know. It's those times where when people ask you, you know, what decade would you have grown up in or whatever, you know, I always say the 70s in New York during the salsa boom between the island and New York. It would be a wild time. So yeah, it's all around. It's all around you when you grow up. For sure.
Very cool. So my last question for you, and then we'll get into the questions that I have for the two of you. Record shops in New York. And again, Short Film Saturday is very international audience. So for those who may be living super, super far away from the US, record shops in New York, are they still a thing? Are they dying? Is there a resurgence? Are people trying to keep them alive? Tell us about that. But also, how did you find this record shop location?
Oh, they're absolutely a thing. You know, I think they never left, but more than ever now, they're definitely coming back. You know, like a lot of people are looking to analog, to the warmth of the sound. It's just the best sound. You know, playing analog, and there's a lot of parties popping up. You know, like one of the actors, well, both actors are actual DJs in the community. One is Sonny Chiba, who's part of a crew called Uptown Vinyl Supreme from the Bronx, and they do straight up vinyl parties. Obviously, Uptown Vinyl Supreme. And then Sucio Smash is the other DJ who plays tone, and he's part of a party called Rosie Perez, like a classic New York party. He has a record label called High Water, and they're all about vinyl, analog sound. So it's definitely a thing. And I think part of what I wanted to show was also like record shop culture, you know, like how much it's a boys club, you know, how, you know, women trying to delve into the culture are oftentimes, you know, like not taken as seriously, you know. And I think in the short, the D character definitely steps up to them, you know, and like calls it out. And I saw people in the chat bugging out about that. So yes, she was.
Yeah, she was a crowd favorite for sure.
And the actual record shop in the shop is called Record Shop. It's in Red Hook, and our homie DJ Wolf, who plays Chewie, works there, and the owner Benny let us shoot there for a super, fair deal. Yeah, I wish we had more time in there, but we made it work. We just walked in. We didn't have to fix anything, change anything. All we had to do was like block things, and move things around, but we didn't put anything on the walls. It was just as is, it was a beautiful place, and such a community center too for that community, which is really cool.
Very nice. Yeah. So cool. All right, so now I have some questions for the both of you. You guys can, it doesn't matter who answers first, but same question for the both of you. So, vibe on set. I have to know, you both sets seem like they were a blast. Mario, just you and a bunch of DJ friends, that's super cool. Erica, you got all this young energy. They're dancing, they're laughing, they're throwing jokes at each other. Please tell us what filming was like. The vibes must have been immaculate on both sets, I imagine.
Oh man, anyone in production as a vibes are bonkers. It's like shit's going all over the place and nothing's going right, and we got forest fires about to like engulf the Oakland Hills and get rid of our shoot days that we're prepping months for. So it's like a hum of like, are we gonna have to evacuate? So yeah, it's so hard to think of like a vibe. I feel like Mario sets is probably way more chill, but it was like a big set. Like it was shot at my high school, Skyline High in Oakland. So my vibe maybe was not as like chill. But they had an amazing crew. Everyone was like super professional. I had a really great cinematographer. With the kind of cast I had, I hired maybe 3 actors and all real people. So a lot of people that I got from the film, I went to Skyline for like weeks and talked to. I used to be a dancer, so I talked to theater kids, dance kids, tennis kids, volleyball kids. Skyline didn't have a basketball team, so I had to make one from like people that just can run and no blocking. So theater kids no blocking, tennis kids can run. So it was really just like the vibe for the people and the people involved in it is like, I want to make this film. And I think that because the Mario 2, like this is my first short film. And I felt like, no one's going to watch this, or like, no one's going to like this. And, making films, you expect no one to like watch your stuff or care about it. But I feel like I got so much support with this film, and people like, I feel like I identify with the story, even if they're not Asian. My production designer too felt like he was caught between 2 worlds of his culture. People who are mixed and not even Asian, I think really mattered to me. And that just wanted to tell the story. So if I can talk about like the cast and the people and the extras, they all came for like no money. And just like, I want to support this story. I want to support you. You're from Oakland. You went to Skyline. And so I just am like eternally grateful for just like the amazing cast, the amazing crew. So in that case, it's like really incredible. But if you're to peek between the curtains of production, it's like, oh God, can we not let shit happen? Or we're not gonna get shut down. Like that's just like the hum of production, as everyone knows that does production.
Wow. Well, I got questions for you. You had a lot of moving parts, a lot of locations. You had a lot of locations, a lot of moving parts, a lot of, like choreographed sets. So that's very impressive. That is your first short film, and that there was only 3 actors. Like what? Like the performances were so good. The kids were on point, so big ups to you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Same with yourself too. It's actually one main location and then just a house. So we mainly just shot at the school and just like around the school. Right, because I'm sure like I was like, oh, how can you do that in one day? But I was looking at your angles and how many like setups you had. I was like, oh, you must have been really flying through the takes, because it was very dialogue heavy, and you did have like a lot of, but you did choose those kind of angles that like I liked. Someone also noted that it felt very Spike Lee, and I knew that from the first couple of seconds, like, oh yeah, I know we're going with this here. And some of the cuts and the pacing was like really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, that's funny because I wasn't thinking of Spike when I was working, but the fact that he shot in Red Hook, before. He often goes into music. I know he did the show. What was it? She's Gotta Have It, where he had like the records like pop up in the corner and stuff like that. So I see that. I definitely see the influence, and I'm definitely influenced by him. I just wasn't thinking about him when I was thinking Cassavetes for some reason, you know, when I was writing it, like black and white, gritty. I wanted that nastiness, you know, like the feel, I don't know, like close-ups and texture, you know.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
really
take that. I love Spike, so, and I know he shot it all over Brooklyn, so it makes sense. The set for us was really chill, like you would imagine, one location. We kind of just, it was friends working with each other, you know, so it felt very familiar, you know. I almost, thinking of Spike now, actually, I know that for some of his films, he's tried like psychological experiments with the actors, you know, to try to get performances or whatever. I tried that, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have Jeremy, who plays Jake, not meet anybody before the day of the shoot, you know. So he comes in and he kind of feels like they don't feel familiar to each other, you know, like they feel like foreign to each other. But he's such a nice guy that he came in and he just connected with them. So I was like,
dang it. Sounded so
but
great.
he's a good actor too, that he made it work, you know what I mean? But it was very chill on set. I think, you know, a few of the folks were nervous. Obviously, you know, first, it's different being a DJ and being out there and performing for people, but like with a camera in front of you, you know, because I'm sure the feeling is a little different. So my partner Diana, who was also script supervisor, she verified the script to make sure I wasn't doing any corny, you know, like toxic man stuff throughout the process. She is a herbalist as well, so she had like these tinctures with medicine. So, you know, folks were feeling a little nervous. I got something for you. It was like all the BTS shots are like people going like this with droppers and tincture stuff. So it was very chill, you know, very familiar, it felt very calm, very medicinal, yeah. And we got it done in one day. Like you said, we flew through the takes. It was yeah, it was a rush, you know. I kind of simplified it. That was the key for me. At first I had like a lot of moving parts and a lot of camera movements, and then I was like, you know, I'm just gonna keep it super simple, clean, you know, and like work from there. And yeah, that's what we did.
Wow. Well, kudos to you, because I don't think I have ever heard of a chill film set in my life. So that's amazing. Film sets are so stressful, and you were like, no, first time, knock it out of the park, and everyone's gonna be relaxed the entire time. Love that.
It's always a shit show. Oh my God.
I mean, inside I was dying, but yes, it was chill.
Oh yeah, that's a required part of it, dying on the inside.
Right.
Very cool. So both of your films had definite styles that set them apart. Who or what are some of the visual references that you use to craft your films? So I know, Mario, you started on a little bit if you want to go a bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking I was watching a lot of Cassavetes black and white joints during the pandemic, and I love the texture, the feeling of it. I, you know, wanted to do more like verite style, but for time's sake and for keeping it simple, we went more with, you know, just clean, like put it on the sticks and let it sit, you know, and just stillness, looking for stillness in it. So yeah, I think that was the main influence, I would say, visually. Definitely Spike, you know, sneaks in there in the subconscious, and yeah, for sure. That was definitely the few main influences.
I think for mine, for visually, you know, I kind of grew up as a music video director, and so I kind of feel like I found my visual take on what I personally like before that. So I think with this, because it's my first short film, I was more focused on writing and character development. So the films I was watching for writing was mid-90s, Skate Kitchen, and 8th grade. So I wanted to like understand how kids were, and specifically because it's a short film, I had to understand how do I make someone be friends with somebody in 3 shots, and how can I get someone to dislike somebody in 3 shots? Because in a short film, you have like less than 60 seconds to be like, oh, now you're my friend. Yeah. I'll tell a quick example. In mid-90s, there's a scene where like how do I get this little boy to be friends with these adult kids? Yeah. And it's as simple as like shot 1, you see him looking at the kids. Shot 2, like the kid drinks the water, he's out. And the little boy goes, do you want to fill it up? It's like, yes. That's basically 3 shots. Yeah. And then for Skate Kitchen, she falls off her board. That's 1 shot. The boys make fun of him, and then the girl gang kind of comes up and defends her. That's 3 shots. Yeah. So I was more dissecting films for like story and for how can I do that. But I mean, for visuals, I did music videos. I'm a dancer, so I do a lot of blocking and a lot of pace. So I love to move the camera. I love gritty. I love like handheld. I shoot everything. I don't use dollies. So all of the moves were super intentional, super mapped out, especially the basketball game. It was really blocked out and timed out. In the locker room shot too was the one where all the whip pans kind of happen. I did that a lot, like too, in music videos and like experimental films. So doing in-camera effects was like so innate for me.
Very cool.
Dope.
Very cool. This feels like a masterclass. I feel like we're all learning so much from you two today. This is lovely. I hope the audience members are taking notes, okay? All right, one last question from me, and then we'll turn it over to audience questions. So these are both your first films, which is honestly insane. What was the most difficult part of shooting or producing these films?
Time. Time in every way, you know. I feel like that we chose to do it during the pandemic. You know, we had two cancellations, you know, for this shoot, where we had it ready to go. We had Airbnbs booked, and the two folks in separate locations got COVID first, our DP and then our main actress. So, and then time on the day of, you know, where I was like, man, I wish I could delve a little deeper into the scene, you know, and explore the characters a little more and explore, you know, different options of visuals, whatever, you know, and we couldn't, you know, so definitely time, which was probably, you know, also a great advantage in other ways, you know. It unlocked, you know, limitations lead to freedom. And I think in some way, creative freedom came from that. We were like thinking on our feet instinctually, and it worked out, but definitely time.
Yeah, time was always, I feel like, really difficult. I think I kind of glazed over ours. Like, we shot in October in 2019, so there's a lot of forest fires. There's a lot of like wildfires in Oakland. So they're going to shut down power to the city because it was out of control, and we just happened to shoot that weekend, and we're all like coming from LA. So it was like you know, the struggle of making a personal story into one day, like trying to get rid of the like insecurity of like it's not accurate. It's like, well, yeah, it's a short film. But also getting people in seats, getting the crowd, getting the jerseys because they had no basketball team. And I had to dig through me and my producer went into the locker room and dug through men's jerseys to find female jerseys. We were almost going to use the men's jerseys because we didn't have any jerseys. Finding another basketball team that's willing to come up and doing practice with us. And like Oakland High, that's an Oakland High basketball team, the real basketball team. And that's our actual coach. Finding kids who can play basketball. I didn't find any. So like casting like across the board, like everything. Doing crowds is not, and doing crowd sports and kids is not a good idea for your first film. I will say that, and on your own dime. So don't do that. Do something less. Everything was a struggle, but I feel like it's like that excitement of like making something that'll push you through, and like so like hyper focused on like just getting shit done will get you through the day. But it was a very, very difficult shoot for sure.
Wow. Wow. Wow, that's all I can say. No, just wow. All right, everyone. Audience questions. So I have noticed that questions have been dropped in the chat since the very beginning. I am not scrolling. You guys make so many comments, and I love that. I love it, love it, love it. Don't ever stop being you. Always keep commenting. But if you want to ask your question to the lovely Erica and Mario, you're going to have to, you can just like copy and paste it. You have to resubmit your question, pretty please. And while you're doing that, while you're typing your questions, retyping your questions, Erica and Mario, what is next for you? What projects should we be looking forward to?
You want to go ahead, Mario?
Yeah, right now I'm just writing. So I don't have anything in the horizon yet when it comes to film. I am just writing and working to pay the bills. You know, like I'm doing projects with organizations that I like in New York and doing that. But I've been shooting a lot of film lately, a lot of film photography. I miss my street photography kicks, and I'm back on that. So I'll probably have a show at some point soon with a new project that I have with film photography. But when it comes to films, I'm just writing. I'm trying to find the discipline to create like a routine where I write every day and really put love into a script and do something dope, you know? So we'll see.
Yeah, I want to write too. I don't have time to write. So by trade I'm a commercial director also, so I work in commercials. But I do want to write a film. My second short film off Fairfax, I can't announce it just yet, but we're going to Park City in January. I'll just so happen to be there. And we're gonna have an online premiere for that. So by next year, off Fairfax will be available to watch. And again, with Disney, I'm going to have another short film called The Ghost, and that will be coming out on the Disney Plus platform in like May or June. But you'll see like a couple of like articles I'll post it on my Instagram and like kind of promote it and when it's going to come out. I'm really, really proud of that one. It's like another like Asian American family story. I didn't write it. I was just a director on that one. But I felt like it kind of stretched of like what I want to do. Like it has stunts, it has VFX, it has like a lot of like the kind of camera work that I really like to do. So I'm really excited for that one.
Very cool. Alrighty, so let's hop into these audience questions. We have plenty. Everything underneath the Soleil space saying get those audience questions ready. It's almost time. That's fair game. All right. Anything above that? I don't see it. Okay. Alrighty, so we are starting with, oh, there's so many questions. I'm so happy. First question
Can I
is
ask
from
one
Mika.
for Erica first?
Sorry, what'd you say, Mario?
Before you get in the crowd, I have a question for you, Erica. I really I love the last shot, the last scene really touched me in the film. When did it come to you? When did you make the connection between, obviously, you know, the beginning and the end, the egg, you know, that motif, you know, when did it come to you? And yeah, it was just very touching.
Oh, thank you. That's a really nice question. I feel like when I knew that I wanted the egg in there because so that's a true story. When I was in college, I lived near my grandma and I visited her and she had a black eye and I thought someone hit her. And she said that she fell down. I kind of believed it, kind of didn't really believe it, but she's rubbing an egg on her eye. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, basically, you rub the egg on your eye because the heat helps the circulation, and then you eat it afterwards. And then when she said that, I was like, that's the most Chinese superstitious thing I've ever heard in my life. And I felt like that's such a great way to show Chinese culture in one physical object. So I always knew that it was going to begin and end that way. It was actually always supposed to end with a fight. But the acceptance of coming home, it definitely made sense to like, it wasn't something that you say, but also the grandmother doing that and her not reacting to the black eye says so much about her too. So yeah, thank you so much for that question. That's a good one.
Wow, absolutely wonderful.
Cool.
Alrighty, so an audience question.
It felt like, you know, when nothing.
Oh, sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you.
Sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead. We have plenty of time. Don't worry.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, it was touching because it felt like when nothing is going right for you, when nothing's there for you, like your roots are there, you know, like your ancestors in a way, like directly, you know, that was dope.
Thank you. That was the intention. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm gonna read the question.
Okay.
All right, first question from Mika. Erica, who was your DP?
Oh, my cinematographer is Drew Daniels. We caught him in 2000. He won his film Skin won the Oscar in 2018. I nabbed him in 2019. I was like, there's no way Drew's gonna do this. And we were looking for DPs, and I was really shocked that he liked the screenplay. So when he got signed on, I was like, okay, this is a film.
Nice. Oh, that is so nice. Very lucky. Cool. Then we have a question from Privy. What is the most surprising response each of you got to your film? Like something that hit you right out of left field.
God, mine's a toughie. But you go ahead, Mario.
The most surprising response from like an audience member to it. That's interesting. I don't know. It was just funny seeing the different reactions from folks in LA, in New York, in the different places where it's in Chicago, different places where it's shown, and how people laugh at different parts of it, you know. And I don't know, a surprising reaction. I feel like I was ready for everything. I was like ready for people to be upset by it, people to be excited by it, people to be, I I can't come up with a specific reaction that surprised me, but it was just cool seeing how people connected to different parts of it and different depending where they're from. You know, like New York connected to the music, LA connected to the dynamic between the clerk and the DJs. You know, so it was just cool seeing the different vibes.
Mine's a toughie, for obvious reasons. But I shot in 2019, and the pandemic hit in 2020, so I was still doing post. And I was like, oh, I'll do the festival circuit in 2021. That's fine. In 2021, it was like the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, and also violence against Asian Americans. And so the response I did not appreciate, that I didn't expect, was the parallels of violence between the Steph and Aang. But I feel like a lot of people miss that it was supposed to be about a falling out with friends.
Yeah.
And it was more about ego. Like, girls on the team, they never comment on her race. They never disliked her for race.
Yeah.
If anyone plays sports, you know that, like, if you make me lose, or if you lose the ball and you're benched, you're a fucking loser and get out of here. And you're making, like, it's really like an ego thing. So when I was in freshman, I was a bench player because I was playing with some amazing girls, and I felt shitted on all the time, but because I wasn't a good player. But then on the other hand, the Asian kids like just kind of dig at you for your race, which is the complete opposite of like how you connect and if you're like down enough or whatever. And I wanted that to be clear in the film, that the girls on the team never cared that she was Asian. That wasn't about that. It was about ego. And the fight was about ego. And the fight was about, like, it's this girl on the outskirts that was like trying to connect with these girls that wasn't able to do it. And Steph's like, just get back at them. It's fine. And she did it to Steph. And it's like, okay, you crossed the line because I already feel like shit.
Yeah.
And so that was supposed to be like the motivation for it. So I was a little saddened just to kind of see the responses about like, there's like so much violence against Asian Americans. I feel like everyone's so heated. It's like, that's not what the film was about.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that parallel to happen. But, the thing about creating work is that you can never control the responses or how people receive your film. Yeah. Even if it's incorrect, you can't control the responses or how people perceive it. All you can do as a filmmaker is try to be as intentional as possible, really back up your choices and motivations, and try to be as clear as you can visually and like dialogue wise. And I tried my hardest to be like really clear in like what the film was about. But I had some like wacky like responses online or whatever. But the positives of it, honestly, is that I didn't think anyone would get my film because it was just made because I want to make it. But the positive was that everyone connected to it on a cultural level of like, I didn't feel like I fit in. Yeah. Or I wasn't black enough for my black side of the family. I wasn't white enough for the white side of the family. So like, I felt like I wasn't, good enough ever. And I like that people who weren't Asian were able to feel that cultural unacceptance from their own group of people. And I think that mattered the most to me. That outshines the other small comments.
Very interesting. Yeah, for me watching it, I didn't make that Black Lives Matter COVID connection, but again, I am watching it in 2022. So hopefully, we didn't see any comments about it today. So hopefully the audience today also got the intended effect. But yeah, that is so crazy. You truly could not have known that it would be coming out in that political climate. That was, none of us saw that coming.
I'm glad you didn't. Like, most people didn't, but the 10% feel louder in my head.
Yeah.
And I worry so much about being misrepresented or feeling like whatever I make is taken the wrong way. Yeah. And I can't control the little fire. So it's like a 5-10% of people made that comment at the beginning of it. So I just like wrote a little statement about that, but it surpassed.
Okay. No, that's still very interesting. Alrighty, some more audience. I have so many to choose from. We have one question from Dalis Curiel. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. For Mario, would love to know why Mario chose to shoot in black and white instead of color.
Ooh, I think it's because of the nostalgia of the music. I wanted to, it just felt like black and white. When I imagine it in black and white. And budget also, like we don't have to pay colorists and stuff like that. Even though some homies came through and actually colored it, in black and white, and they did a great job. It was a discussion between me and the DP, Redens de Rosier, Rex, wherever he is. We just wanted that nostalgia, that grittiness, that texture, and we went with black and white. Now the format, that was something we had discussed early, and then I kind of put it out of my mind, like the square, more boxy 4:3 ratio. We had talked about it. I completely forgot about it. We showed up to set on the day. We were ready to shoot, regular widescreen. And then he brought it up. He was like, let's shoot this shit square. Like, let's shoot it boxy. And boxy always made sense for it because, it's one location, like the characters are kind of trapped with each other in this space. And I wanted to make it feel like boxed in a little bit. And yeah, we had a lot of fun with the compositions, knowing that it was going to be 4:3 ratio. And yeah, that was the reason behind it.
Also, the shape of the records.
The shape of the records, right.
Yes.
So square, boxy, and playing with that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Alrighty, and then another one for Erica. This is a quite topical question. What is your personal experience with cultural appropriation versus appreciation, and how did you choose to tell that aspect into your shorts?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that it was clear in the short what the braids meant for the character as far as like why she wore the braids. And for myself, growing up, I'm quite older, set into the early 2000s. I think that cultural appropriation was a topic of conversation, but not as heavily as done nowadays. So some who didn't experience the early 90s and like late 90s and early 2000s might not understand how the culture was with braids or appropriation. But I think with knowledge and with more education and people like kind of explaining the cultural significance, then it kind of phased. I think as a society, we kind of phased out that kind of, braids or anything. It still exists, but I feel like people are more susceptible to the conversation right now. So I think like as a kid, it's more like whatever was popular, and it wasn't a thing. It was back in the early 2000s, it wasn't like really frowned upon. I mean, girls on the team braided my hair and I braided their hair. I knew how to do their braids too. So it was also like a way of friendship. But I can see how it might not be, received in a way that feels understandable for kids who didn't grow up in that era. And that might have negative responses to that.
Very cool. So Mario, same question for you, because your film also touches a bit on that. Cultural appropriation versus appreciation, your own experience, and how you chose to bring that into your film.
Yeah, that's kind of like the whole lifeline of the film for sure. I think, for me, it was just going into the scene in New York and starting to document the events. I realized that before me, a lot of folks that documented events like that were white folks, and it's just a lot of, there's a lot of nuance to cultural events and cultural celebrations that I think, people from the culture are better at capturing, you know what I mean? And it started with that. That was like the first bug that got into my head that I was like, okay, like this is interesting. Why would the amount of amazing documenters and photographers and videographers that are in the community, why not one of our people, to tell our story? So it became a lot about that, about who's telling our story. Are we telling our story? Who's, in power of choosing who tells our story, and I think the short speaks for itself, yeah, that's definitely the main lifeline of it. And that's been my experience with it. And yeah, but I also wanted to show that, again, like a lot of these characters are sympathetic. I didn't want to make it like a black and white, like villainous thing. There's a lot of nuance to it, and there's a lot of depth to it, and it's more complicated than it seems,
Very nice. Alrighty.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions. And thank you to everyone for submitting questions. I super appreciate it. These have been amazing questions. Unfortunately, I do have to be respectful of time, so I am going to put the cap on it there. But before I let you two go, everyone just saw these amazing films. They're new fans. How can audiences keep up with you? Social media, a website, how can they find you?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
mine's just ericaing.com is my website. And then I only use Instagram because I don't know how to use social media. I like even the live thing, like we all know that was crazy. Um, Instagram, I just use Miss Erica Inc. So I'm pretty simple. And I do all my updates there for anything that I'm doing personally.
Yeah, for me, same website is marioruben.com, marioruben.com. And for Instagram, Mario_Ruben_, and you can kind of keep up with whatever's coming there.
Alrighty, perfect. So everyone, please be sure to follow these two amazing filmmakers. That is it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us on Short Film Saturdays. It's been fun. It's always fun. For all things Soleil Space and Short Film Saturdays, check out our website, www.soleilspace.com. If you haven't already, you need to be there. Check it out. This is, again, our final episode of the year. We have no more Short Film Saturdays in 2022. This has been a really great one to end the year on. We'll be back in January. So that's all there is. I'll see you guys in January. Bye-bye.